Jimenez, yeah. I got that. I just didn't know what the M was. Great, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us in person with your face. That's awesome. I love that. All right, so here's what we're going to do today. Before we even get started, we're going to continue our journey on the 4-step. What I wanted to do with you first for a warm up, because it's that time of year. If you could, what would be your superpower today? What would be your superpower? So you can come off mute. You can stick it in the come off screen. Give you a minute to think about that. What would be your superpower? And when you're ready, you could just share. Read people's minds, April says. Patience. Ooh, we have 2 read people's minds. Okay. Anything you could be, what would you be? Invisibility. Okay. That has its benefits for sure. Huh. Jenny, do you have one? Can't think of one?
I mean, I'd like to be able to eat whatever I want and not gain weight. Does that count as a superpower?
That works. I mean, that totally works. I take that one. I think mine is, sort of a light, fluffy one. I would do, I would eradicate hate and racism. Yeah. Yeah. Any other superpowers from people in the meeting? Going once, going twice. All right. Excellent. All right, so here's what our goals are for today. We're going to do a quick review, go through the rest of the step 2. At the very end of our last time, I went through the RIOT really quickly, and I want to go through that again with you. See where you are with validating your hypotheses. I don't know if folks had an opportunity to do that, but we'll do that. And then we're going to dig into step 3. Hello, Charlene. We're going to dig into step 3. So what you were supposed to do for your homework, if you will, was to try to complete your step 2, including validation if you could. So we'll talk about that when we get there. So let's just do a really quick review. Let me just ask people on the call, how far did you get? I mean, we didn't really dig into the RIOT last week. So if you didn't get to it and it was a little confusing, I can understand that. So, did anybody validate their hypothesis yet? Okay. I'm going to take that as a no. And that's
I will say that I did put on there that I validated my hypothesis, but mine is sort of made up information.
okay.
Like that I
Okay.
interviewed people, I used it as though
Okay. So maybe we
answers
can use we can talk to you when you get there. So let's do that. Because again, we didn't dive deep into the RIOT last year. Thanks, Angela, I got your message there. All right. So really quick, not spending much time on this. The 2 parts of the hypothesis, the problem is not occurring. The behavior is, the desired behavior is not occurring because, and in the Happy High School, it was 39% of the kids are not passing Math 1 because, and we just made it up. They lack basic arithmetic skills. And then the prediction statements are when kids are fluent with basic math facts, then they will pass Math 1. Hypothesis prediction. So we talked about this and you did this. You brainstormed all the reasons why the problem is not occurring. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to just move through this. So if you need me to slow down, just say something. So this is what all the Happy High School came up with, right? So teachers don't support or encourage participation. There's excessive absenteeism. So they wrote all of their stickies down. And then they sorted them via ICEL, right? So ICEL, instruction, curriculum, environment, and the learner. So there are lots of, well, it falls into two things, E's and I's. And remember, when you're doing this, I will haunt you if you do this. You have to make sure that you go back to the ICEL matrix and make sure it's an E, an I, a C. Don't say, well, you know, I think that's an E. No, I'll be in your dreams. Because I hear you, Shirley. So and if you're going to do this with your grade level folks or your leadership team at your school, as I said before, we've all gone to different prep programs. We all see things a little bit different. This helps calibrate and create the common language, common understanding. So ICEL, make sure you have the checking of the matrix. All right, I won't beat that one to death, but I have hit that horse quite a few times. Okay, so Happy High School, they said they believe that one of their issues was kids aren't performing well because of excessive absenteeism during first period. And they said, you know, if kids came to school regularly and on time, they would pass their Math 1. So this is where you sort of did your own, you generated your hypothesis, which I know we all did. We did a little review of that. So validate your hypothesis using the RIOT. So remember, the RIOT is the one on the left, or I'm sorry, on the right, RIOT. And so which one do we always start with? Practicing my wait time. You can put it in the chat if you'd like. Oh, I see a chat there. Hang on. Yes. Thank you, Jenny. Review, interview, observe, and test in that order. And remember, we've talked about this. It's an and or. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do a RIOT for everything. You start with review because you can knock some things out just by doing a review. So it's review and or interview and or observe and or test. You can do all if you want. But you don't have to. If you do as many as you need to validate or invalidate. So again, as a review, Happy High School said excessive absenteeism is an E, and they're going to review the RIOT by reviewing the attendance of all kids in the math periods. I went through this really quickly at the end of last session, so I just wanted to go through it with you again. So they're saying if we look at all the attendance of Math 1 in all periods, we'll find out that there's an absenteeism issue. So teacher A through D, kids are at 91 is the lowest and 98 is the highest. So did they really have an attendance issue in their math class? Yeah, not really, because that's pretty darn good if you look at that. So they have a pretty good rate. C has the lower one, but it's still in the 90s, which is excellent. So then they said, okay, well, let's take each teacher's attendance and compare it to what their grades are. And what do you see there? And please feel free to come off mute and talk. Otherwise, I'm just sort of talking to myself here. What do you see? Teacher C has the lowest failure rate. And he or she also has the lowest attendance rate. Low, right? C has lower attendance rate and the lowest failure rate. Thank you, Angela. Yes. So, and I shared this with you last time we were together. If the research really shows that 20% or more of your kids are not doing well, either in your school or in your classroom, let's say for algebra, it's not the kids, it's the instruction or something in the instructional environment. So they did not validate the hypothesis that the problem occurs because there's excessive absenteeism during grade 1. So they wrote the RIOT there. The results of the RIOT is right below it. Kids are coming, even the kids coming not as frequent are scoring as well as the kids that are, or better than the kids come every day. Does that make sense? Cool. All right. So the second one was the problem is occurring because teachers do not implement effective instructional strategies. According to the matrix, that's an I. And then the teachers say, you know, if when Math 1 teachers use effective instructional practices like guided independent practice, checking for understanding, then kids would meet their levels of expectations. So they decided to do an observation of this. And so I'll walk through. How many of you have an observation rubric? Does anybody have an observation rubric that your school uses? Okay. Maria says yes. So they used their observation rubric and, you know, again, 3 times over 3 weeks at the beginning, middle, and end of math class. They had to vary it up so they could see, you know, be fair to, you know, seeing it. And we talked about that last time. So here's what they look like. And down the right of that pie chart, you can see what their components are that they look at. And we unpacked this the last time together. In this observation, what do kids spend most of the time doing? I could read your lips, Jenny. Independent practice. Yes. And then what's the second thing that they do? A lot of. Yeah. Explicit instruction. So I'm either yakking at you teaching or you're doing it. So it's an I do, you do. It's not I do, we do, you do. Okay. And then you can look at this. 6% of the time is spent in, what is the 6%? Guided practice with peer support. Is that right? I can't read the blue there. I think that might be reflection, integration, and extension. So guided practice with teacher support is 13. It's the purple one. And modeled instruction is 13%. So clearly this classroom has some issues with lots of time spent. Over 50% of the time is they're sitting quietly and listening or they're doing independent practice. So here's the results of what they did. And again, they did it beginning, middle, and end over 3 weeks. So the rubric shows that 24% independent practice, 27% it's well, you know what I'm saying. 27% instructional time is spent in independent practice. 24% is explicit. 13% is on modeling. 0% is spent on reflection as to why they're doing. So the next one, okay, so I'm sorry. So did they validate that kids may not be doing well because they don't implement effective instructional strategies? Is that a yes or a no? Yes. Thank you, Angela. Yes, absolutely. Validated that. Perfect. So then their next one was, it's happening, kids are not doing well because they have insufficient instruction and it's not maintaining high levels of student engagement. And we know that. I mean, we know that. So if the teachers used engaging strategies, kids would perform better. So they did 3 on this. And again, they were practicing this. So they did interview, observe, and test. So they interviewed students, and then you'll recall that they did high and low performing students, which I thought was brilliant. They observed using their rubric. They went through and looked at student engagement across those instructional strategies, which I thought was amazing. And then they called it a test, but it's a survey. They had the kids do a survey to talk about homework and classwork. All right. So the pie chart that we just looked at, all of those components are along the bottom. And then when they looked at observing the kids during those components, what did they see? When were the kids the least engaged in their classwork? Least engaged. Right on, Angela. She's hot today. She is independent practice. Yeah. So communicating and reflecting. Oh yeah, communicating with a purpose. There's 0 there. So absolutely. It's not even on the chart, Charlene. Excellent. So yeah, so independent practice of the stuff that has any data, thanks Maria, is is that. So they spent 27% of their time of class doing independent practice, and yet less than 50% are actually doing it. So that's a problem. Could be a behavior issue. What component, when they do it, are they most engaged in? And the garbage truck is here, so I don't know if you can hear it. So guided practice, Jenny. Yes. So if you look at guided practice, 89% of the kids were involved when you did that. So again, if we go back to this little pie chart, but model instruction is close. Yeah. So independent practice was, hang on, what are we doing here? Guided practice. Yes, let's go back to here. So guided practice is with teacher support, and modeled instruction is 86. So to your point, Angela, what we know is both of those grab the kids for engagement. Even the guided practice with peer support is higher. So we know that of those components, when the kids are engaged, they produce. When you have them sit and do independent practice, that's a recipe for behavior disaster. All right. So easy peasy how they did that. They used their walkthrough. They looked at how much the kids are engaged. The next thing I'll share with you was their teacher interview. And again, I'm just going to be quiet here and let you read on the left side, it's the high performing kids. On the right side, it's the at-risk kids. So take a look. There we go. I don't know what's going on here. Oh. So let's start with the top one. It says, describe your Algebra 1 class. What is your class like? Top of the list for both of them is what? Class is boring. Shocking. They both have the same thing. Okay. What other combinations or things that you see? And too much lecture. Thanks, April. Yes, it's boring and too much lecture. Too many worksheets. Too much teacher talk and busy work. And interestingly enough, which is what I thought is so brilliant about this, the high and the low kids, the high performing and the at-risk kids said the same thing. So that, I mean, that should say something, I think. Not that it matters whether they're high or low performing, but you got lots of validation in there. You know, and then the at-risk kids get a little bit more uncomfortable asking the teacher or peers for help because they should, you know, she says or he says, you should already know that. Other kids laugh. So that sucks. So then let's look at the one on the bottom, which is what changes would you make to make your class more interesting for learning? And the first one is less teacher talk. Yes, April, great. More group work. Yes, thank you, April. So kids know, I mean, just ask them. They know. More modeling, the at-risk kids, more modeling, more guided practice. You know, and the words are, have teachers watch their students do some problems and tell them what they're doing right and wrong. Perfect. Yeah, at-risk kids, thanks, Shirley. They're asking for feedback. Tell me what I'm doing correctly. Tell me what I'm not doing correctly. Be more supportive and encouraging. I like the one on the bottom is answer students' questions and appropriately respond to incomplete or incorrect answers. Answer my question when I ask them instead of telling me to figure it out on my own. Teachers shouldn't roll their eyes or laugh or let other students laugh when someone has a wrong answer. Crushing. That's soul crushing. So yeah, Maria, fairness and kindness. It's the culture of the classroom, right? So this is not a safe classroom for me. It's not safe where kids can, you know, take risks, and if they get it wrong, it's a good learning opportunity. All right, so there's that. There's just the perspective is great. So then this is their test, their survey that they gave. So take a look at that one. Okay, so there's a common theme through this. The first one is about how often do you not complete your classwork? And 54% say I always complete my classwork. Okay, hang on. 49.5. Yeah, 49% don't do their homework. Yeah, thank you. I'm not good at math. Yes. Then the next one is when you don't complete your classwork, why is that? And of course, blatantly, it says, I don't understand how to do it. And then, and again, the questions could be worded a little bit better, but it's all good. About how often do you not complete your homework? So the top one was classwork, the bottom one is homework. And Charlene, what's the number? 40 what? 54? 44? I can't read. 49. Okay, yeah. 49% of their kids don't do their homework. Okay, and think about it. They've got a ton of independent practice time and they're still not getting their homework done. And they don't know how to. Yeah, because the next one is, I don't understand how to do it. 66% of those kids that don't do their homework don't know how to do it. Yeah. 60% don't know how to do their homework. Yes, they don't understand it. 66%, yes. So from the mouth of babes, right? So they talked to them and said, what do you like? What you don't like? What about classwork? What about homework? So so it's really important that you just record briefly on your results of your hypothesis. And I'm not going to read this out loud because you can read it. It just basically writes down what they saw in the interviews, what they saw in the walkthroughs, which we talked about, and then what the survey showed. Their hypothesis was kids are not doing well in Math 1 because insufficient instruction is not maintaining high levels of student engagement. Based on their RIOT, IOT, did they validate that in fact it could be happening because there's no engagement? Yeah, yes, there's a lot here, and they went right to the kids and said, what's up? So any questions with the RIOT, how to look at the RIOT and use the RIOT, and does it make sense? And we talked about it last week. You can look at the list of everything that's on the RIOT, certainly use that as a springboard to get some ideas. So if you're in instruction, you can certainly look at this. But you don't have to. I mean, I think the beauty of it is to sort of brainstorm, well, how do we know whether the kids are excessively absent? Well, let's look at this record. That's a review. How do we know whether teachers are engaging? It's a walkthrough. And obviously you just don't get into a classroom with a teacher and do a walkthrough. You got to sort of on-ramp why you're doing what you're doing and all that groovy stuff. So so if you're good with that, I'm asking you this question. How will you riot? Okay, now the recycling truck is here. How will you riot your identified hypotheses? So last time we were together, pretty much all of you had your hypothesis written and your prediction statements. So what I want you to think about, and I'm going to put you in breakouts for a little bit so you can chat with each other. How will you go about deciding how to riot your hypothesis? What data are you going to look at to validate or invalidate your hypothesis? Does that seem appropriate this time? All right. So just have a conversation. I mean, I'm not going to give you a whole lot of think time individually. So just get in there and maybe just somebody share what they're doing and what you think is going to happen. So Susan, if you could put us into breakout rooms, I'm going to give you about 8 minutes in a breakout room and then I'm going to call you back. Fabulous. Close the door. It's quiet.
Judy, I moved one of the participants.
How do I get to a breakout room?
I can move you. I don't know why. Last
Wait,
time it
join a
worked.
breakout room. Here we go. I got one. The
Okay,
one I went
okay.
to didn't have anybody.
Yeah, I moved that person in there, just so you know. There was only one person, it was you and me.
The 2 breakout rooms I just went into have nobody in them.
Okay, I'm getting ready to move you. I'm gonna move it through here. I don't know why it's doing that.
I want to pop into a couple of them, so I don't know why.
There's
Yeah.
just two. There's just
Okay.
2 rooms. Okay,
Thanks.
there you go.
This one didn't have. I got switched in the middle of your talking, Jenny, sorry. I was like, whoop, where'd I go? Okay, how'd we do? Just, give me I got into 2 breakouts. So I saw a couple things. Talk to me, come off mic and talk to me how you're feeling, genuinely feeling about your understanding and use of hypotheses, predictions, and how to riot your hypotheses. On a scale, you could do it, let's do it by numbers. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you totally don't know, 3 being you're sort of lukewarm, and 5 being you got it. Give me in your chat box, how do you feel about that? Because step 2 is the meatiest part of this model. All right, 3s and 4s, okay? Okay. So, and again, I always liken this to, when you do something like this the first time, it's like, holy crap. And when I remember reading an IEP for the first time, I'm like, holy crap, who thought of this? So, it becomes very fluent. And at some point, you're going to start going, when you're talking to people, you're going to start saying things like, well, what do you think your hypothesis around that? Why do you think that's happening? What's your hypothesis? You start using the language. So here's my question to y'all. What would help you get from a 3 to a 4? Do you need a little bit more practice? Do we want to spend a little bit more time on this? Would it be helpful to just hold on step 3 and go back into breakouts? What would be beneficial to y'all? Give me that in the breakout, in the chat room. Because we have plenty of time, we can do the other steps quickly. This is the meatiest. Just need to do it, learn better, hands-on. Yep. Okay. Doing it, more practice. Okay. So you're okay to go to step 3? Because if you rioted, thank you, Maria. If you've rioted, you're ready to go to step 3. All right. So I'm gonna make the decision that we're gonna go to step 3. Because I'm in charge of this. So let me unshare that real quick. All right. So, I mean, really well done what you're doing. Super well done. It's just harder when, you can't touch people, reach out and touch. So, all right. So here's what we're going to do. Next week, I will come back and I could even use an elementary case study example if that would be helpful. So I could certainly do elementary. I'm a high school person, so I like to do high school. And besides, nobody in high school believes that this can happen. So it does. All right. So step 3 is pretty straightforward. Very straightforward. And when you're developing a plan, and we got way too many plans in education, what's the intervention or the strategy that you're going to ride to the finish line? And so I define fidelity as you have sufficient time to do it, and the support you need to do it will get you to fidelity. So that sinks in. So you've got to have sufficient time. You can't just tag on 15 minutes of MTSS time once a week and say, oh, we're doing MTSS. You got to have sufficient time and sufficient support to do it. So really quickly, not telling you anything you don't know. Remember, I encourage us to move away from using the word intervention and talk about intensifying instruction. So you'd say, Judy's not doing well in algebra. Okay, Charlene, what can we do to intensify our instruction so she'll be successful? Intervention sort of connotes that you're going to fix something. So we're intensifying our instruction. What are you going to do? Who are you going to do it? How long are you going to do it for? What data are you going to do it? I was working with a number of school districts yesterday, and they've got some systems they're getting ready to put in place. And then I said, so how are you going to know whether or not what you're doing is working? What's your return on investment? And they're like, oh, yeah. So before you start, begin with the end in mind. So you're going to do all this wonderful, yummy stuff. And how are you going to know whether the kids are? And you can get there. It's not, So when you do your intensified instruction, I don't say research-based, I say evidence-based, because if you stand on your head and kids learn how to read, that's enough evidence for me. It doesn't have to be researched. So anyway, but you understand what I'm saying. You do it for the right amount, you do it with the level of fidelity it's supposed to be done, you evaluate it, and then you integrate what you're doing across tiers. Because a lot of times, we pull kids out and do something magical with them, and then we send them back into the baseball game and we don't tell them how to use it in the game. So you've got to make sure that happens. So this is an example of a plan. It doesn't matter to me what you use. I'm sort of partial to this format, but there's critical pieces in your plan, because some of you have your own plans that you use. I've never seen anything, even your tips model, it's fine. It doesn't go into step 2 about hypothesizing an ICEL as the 4th step. You can easily integrate that into the tips. It's just a matter of doing that. So here's what it looks like, and you have this in front of you. So I'm going to point out a couple things that are a little bit different in this plan. And then I'm going to walk you through each one quickly with what Happy High School did with it. So the first thing you notice is in the top right-hand side, it has you identify, is it a tier 1, 2, 3 that you're working in? Because people automatically will go to 2 and 3 when really it's a tier 1 issue. So you want people to put a stake in the ground and say tier 1, 2, or 3. Implement, and then up there, you're also saying, okay, describe what your intervention is going to be and what you expect to happen as a result of the intensification of instruction that you're doing. So you put that up there. I'm going to show you what Happy High School did, and then you identify. Implementation is pretty self-explanatory. How often are you going to do it? How long are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? Who's going to do it? Support is the other one of the things on here that is a nuance. So a lot of times we pull teachers to meetings. We say, okay, here's the plan for Judy. Now go do it. And they get back in their classroom, like, how the heck am I going to do this? I don't have any idea. Blah, 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 blah. So the support piece to this means, who's your lifeline? Who is going to be the person that's going to check back on you and say, hey, how's it going with Judy? What do you need help with? So who's going to do the support? How often are they going to check in? And what kind of support do you need? And then the last part is the data collection. It's pretty self-explanatory. What type of data? When are you going to review the data? And who's responsible for collecting the data? And on that one, the one that's nuanced there is to the right, expected performance on a review date. So a lot of times we get to look at data and we go, okay, let's move on. This is saying we're going to look at Judy's data on May 15th. And what we expect to see is that she has improved her work completion by 50%. So you're putting a stake in the ground, sort of like if you're trying to lose weight and you're whatever you're doing, competitions with friends, whatever. And so you say, okay, I'm going to weigh myself on May 15th. What do you expect to see on May 15th? Because if you put it in writing, then you're going to work really hard for it. So it's the same idea. So it's the tier 1, 2, and 3 at the top, the support piece, and then expected rate of performance. So here is what it looks like for Happy High School. I'm going to give you a minute just to take a look at that. So let's start at the top. Do you need more time? So what tier are they working on? 1. Yep. So high school, not if you've you've all been in high schools. Not all high school teachers or elementary teachers or adults know when to stop and check for understanding. So in this case, the math department agreed that they would do 2 check-ins during instruction. And they created a toolbox for the teachers to say, you can use a turn and talk, you can use think, pair, share, you can use quick writes and thumbs down. They gave them a variety of things instead of saying, you're going to do thumbs up, thumbs down. Use whichever one you want to use, pick 2. So they had PD on it, so they all knew how to do it and practiced it together. So they committed to 2 strategies, a period. And then what they wanted to have is that those strategies are increase the active participation of kids, get their classwork and homework done at a better rate. And totally get rid of the time that is 27% independent, 24% talking at them. So literally with some of these teachers, they had to set their phones to ring every 15 minutes or 20 minutes because they just didn't have the rhythm of stop and check and keep going. Cool. So implementation does that make sense? It's not rocket science, but it was a big deal because that was the issue. So implementation was they're going to do it during their math classes and their math intervention classes. They have 60-minute math classes. And down here, it says the teachers are going to do it 3 times. So something happened between above and below. So at least 2 to 3 times they're going to stop and engage, which would be every 20-ish minutes if you want. So they're going to do strategies. They're going to do it at the begin, middle, and end of class. So they'd set their alarm 3 times. And then who's going to do it? It's going to be the math teachers. Does that make sense? Pretty straightforward.
So just to clarify, the top is the recommendation from the support team and the bottom is how the teacher plans to implement it. Or could it be that they, a teacher does all of that?
Yes, teacher does all of this. So in this case,
Okay.
this was Happy High School, the SLT people working with the math department. Now you have to remember that you just can't go in and say, okay, math department, you suck, your kids are failing. So here, we're going to do this to you. So there was a lot of on-ramping and scaffolding before you got to this. So, inevitably you want the math teachers to have a voice in this to say, this is what we're going to do. So, and that's exactly what they did. They met with them and they said, yeah, help us. We don't know what's going on, da, 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 da. So they did all step 2, they shared it all along, and then they came up with this. So this is not the support team necessarily, it's the leadership team with the math department. That's a
Okay.
great question.
Or like a department team or a grade level team?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It depends on how you're using it. I mean, you can use the 4-step as a district, as a building, as a, yes. So the answer is yes. And then the second one here was the support. So take a look at the support. So what kind of support do the teachers want? Again, they have a voice in this. It's not being done to them. What kind of support are they going to get?
Peer observation. So it's just how things are going from someone else's perspective. It's not a judging of them. It's just to give them the information for things they might not see.
Yeah, for teachers by teachers. So I want you to come and watch me and tell me if I'm on track or not. Am I, so they want somebody to come in and watch me do this. How's it going? And they're using the same rubric or the same pie chart thing. Beginning, middle, and end, they're looking for student participation. So they're going back to what they use to validate their hypothesis. They're using the observation tool, which they're all used to, and all of that. So, yes, Angela, they're holding each other accountable in a very supportive way, called the supportive accountability. So the math teachers and the math coach are going to do it with each other. They're going to do it bi-weekly. And they said, this is what would be most helpful for us versus saying, here's what we're going to do to you. The next one is data collection. So have a look at that. So what type of data are they going to collect?
Is it like, engagement?
Yeah, it's their observation protocol, right? It's so they're going again back to collect evidence using the elements of instruction, which was on that pie chart.
Mhm.
And the percentage of time. It's actually literally going back to that and that. So that they're going back, and so that was sort of their baseline, if you will. So they're going to do that, and they're going to, you know, do it used over the class period. They're going to collect the amount of time the kids are active. Same that we did above. They're going to do it bi-weekly, weekly, or daily if teachers want it done daily. So it's really, they'll come up to it. They're going to review their data when they get in their PLTs or professional learning teams. They're going to look at those data. They put their stake in the ground and saying, what do you expect to see when we look at these walkthrough data? They want to see an increase of time spent teachers modeling, guided practice with support, increase of percent of times if kids engaged, and ultimately improving their homework. So I'm a behaviorist, so I would like to see real specific, like increased spend time on modeling practice from 13% to 17%. Baby steps for baby feet. So I would like to have a little bit more of that in there. Ultimately improve classwork and homework accuracy. Where are they now? Where do you want them to be? So I would just nudge just a little bit more. I mean, great job, first time doing it. And then people that are doing the collection of data is their math coach or the math department head. Does that make sense? Pretty straightforward. Just tighten up what you want to see a little bit there. And that's the plan development. So real case study, Happy High School. I walked you through step 1 and 2. You're doing your 2. You're going to validate your hypotheses as best you can. And when you finish validating your hypothesis, then you're going to dig into step 3. Does that make sense? You could use this on your significant other or one of your kids if you wanted. So, and that's the step. So again, whatever plan you use is fine. Those nuances are really, really important. Questions that you have about step 3.
That would also be the time when you're looking to see whether teachers are checking for understanding too. Because, you know, if you want to know if the students understand the homework, because that was the problem, then it's important that they are doing the checking for understanding.
100%, 100%. And that's why they did the thumbs up, thumbs down, turn to your neighbor. You know, all of those are the checking for understanding, and they set their alarm on their phone and they make sure they're doing it. Because, I mean, I think I shared with you the time that the kids didn't understand the instruction. The teacher gave them the homework. They came back the next day. They didn't have their homework done and they all got dinged for not having homework done. But the lesson, she was teaching away, but she did not check for understanding for any of these kids, and the kids were lost. You know, and if 50% of your grade depends on homework, the kids are screwed because they're going to get pinged on that. So yes, absolutely. And you know, so think about it in your own day-to-day work. How often do we or do we not check for understanding to make sure that people are with us or our kids are with us? And it, you know, it doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be, you got to do it. So do you feel comfortable where you are with 2 and 3? Okay, I see some head nods. So thanks, Charlene, for the thumbs up. So what did I do with your homework assignment there? What? So what you're going to do tonight is, or for next time, is basically what we were doing here. Complete your step 2, validate your hypothesis. And then when you have it validated, you know, just start tinkering in with your step 3. Okay. And then the next time, let me know if you're not good with that. the next time we're together is, I have it right here. May 29th. So at the end of the month. And so in between, if you need to connect, send me an email, you want me to look at something, please do. I enjoy seeing all of that, and happy to jump on the phone if that's helpful with y'all. So your homework is going to be just do the best you can with rioting, validating, and then when you feel like you're there, then start step 3. So then when we get together in the 29th, we'll do another review of step 2. Maybe I'll use a different case study. We'll see. Review how you did with step 3. And again, if you can't get it all done because it's a crazy time of year, just make sure you understand how to do it. And then I'll just share with you briefly step 4. It's really hard to get your teeth into step 4 because you haven't really collected your data yet. But I'm going to show you some ways to look at data to see basically, do you have positive response to instruction? Do you have so-so response to instruction, or you got no response to instruction? That's where RTI comes in the 4-step problem solving process. It comes in step 4, response to instruction, response to intervention. Did it work? And so we'll look at step 4 the next time we're together. Questions, challenges, we're doing okay. It's a lot, you rock stars, all of you. So there's an evaluation, if you could do that, if you helpful to see step 3. Thanks, Shirley. So if you want me to fill it out for you, I can fill it out for you. So just keep in touch if I can help you in any way with your steps of where you are. And then the other thing, and I don't want to happen to my slide I put in there, if there's anything else that you would want to talk about or discuss in our next meeting or 2, we have 2 more sessions. Shoot me an email or let me know and I can build it into the agenda. We'll definitely get through 3 and 4. And if there's other things that are sort of weighing on your mind, like when do you use it? How do you use it? Just, give me a, give me a list. So Maria wants to know, you love how it complements and supports. Yeah, perfect. It's a great tool.
I think it tells you the how of how to use DBI. This is where what I think is kind of missing when you look at some of the DBI is it doesn't show you how to do it. And if we use this with everything, then we get fluent with it. So
Yeah,
everybody, that's what
funky.
I love about it, Judy, is that once, we use it for grade level, school level, individual student, when we use that same process, everybody gets fluent with it.
Yep. It's a little clunky now, but it gets super easy. So rock stars, all of you, thank you so much for coming. And I look forward to hearing from you and seeing you in a couple weeks.
And happy May. Happy May.
Happy May.
And
That's right.
testing
Happy May.
season
Woo,
and
we're
all that
almost
good
done.
stuff.